So it feels like no matter how hard I try, I can never fully communicate the sheer depth of the depravity and evilness we are dealing with in this country when it comes to the Republican Party. And there's always been this effort, primarily by Democratic Party politicians, to try to differentiate between the MAGA Republicans or the ultra-MAGA Republicans and non-MAGA, as if that matters. I mean, it's a meaningless distinction because they're all evil. They all lack empathy. They're all bigoted. They all relish in the pain and suffering of others. They are fundamentally anti-human, and they are doing everything in their power to make life objectively worse for all living creatures on this planet. And I understand that we're all exhausted because they're hitting us with a nonstop barrage of bullshit every single day, but we still have to try to do everything in our power to disincentivize their toxic behavior now before it gets even worse. And it will get even worse given the trajectory that they're currently on. And I just want to give you a few examples that demonstrate this. First of all, politicians used to have to put on hoods and white robes to publicly say things that some Republicans are now saying weekly on Twitter, but they're now just straight up Klan posting on their main accounts every single week, as if their racism is somehow common sense to the rest of us. Case in point, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tweeted about how detestable it is for our country to welcome war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu to the country when this man is wanted by the International Criminal Court for doing a genocide. And she's right, this is disgraceful. We are welcoming the modern-day equivalent of Hitler as he prepares to force the remaining population of Gaza into one big concentration camp, after the IDF, by the way, has been murdering dozens of people lining up for food every single day for weeks. And by the way, we're arming and funding this genocide, and to add insult to injury, we're welcoming Hitler 2.0 into our country with open arms when he should be arrested the second he sets foot on U.S. territory. So Ilhan Omar is right. Our embrace of one of the most notorious murderers in modern history is beyond shameful, yet unsurprising for our deeply immoral society. If you disagree with her, you're just a bad person. I'm sorry. But do you want to know how one of her congressional colleagues reacted when she had this human response to us welcoming a war criminal? Well, they called her a terrorist. Randy Fine tweeted, "I'm sure it is difficult to see us welcome the killer of so many of your fellow Muslim terrorists. The only shame is that you serve in Congress." This disgusting, vile cretin with his full chest and no hood on, mind you, called her the terrorist. First of all, he's the one supporting terrorism. But saying he supports the IDF's terrorism doesn't adequately describe the extent of this individual's depravity. He unironically idolizes mass murderers. Last year, this sociopath actually tweeted that he didn't wash his hand after shaking hands with Netanyahu until he was able to touch his kids' heads. So this individual obviously is deeply mentally ill, and if he's concerned about U.S. supporters of terrorism, he should look in the fucking mirror. He has the audacity to say this to her. But second of all, why are we putting up with this shit from lawmakers? We're just allowing sitting members of Congress to regularly Klan post on their mains now? That's what we're doing? That's what this country has become? They don't even have the decency to save their repugnant thoughts for their Klan meetings anymore. It's just infuriating. And it's not just him. Remember, Andy Ogles just called for Zoran Mamdani to be denaturalized and deported and called him Little Muhammad as if he was being funny. And I honestly just can't get over this. Isn't it crazy that they don't feel like they need to put on their Klan hoods to say shit like this? We fucked up as a society by letting this level of racism become socially acceptable again. And this is just a couple of examples. Like, we could talk for hours about the explicit anti-black racism that's out in the open now, or the outrageous homophobia and transphobia of elected officials who sound like regulars on 4chan. Like, if Rashida Tlaib was censured for saying from the river to the sea, why the fuck are we letting these demons get away with this? Censuring should just be like the bare minimum, but really there should be pressure on them to resign because they shouldn't be representing their constituents in Congress. They should be leading opening prayers for their local Ku Klux Klan chapters. In any normal country, like, this would be a national scandal, but these days, it's not even a blip on the fucking radar. It is deeply disgraceful and embarrassing. But aside from their disdain for anyone with skin darker than theirs, they're also going out of their way to do everything in their power to kill as many people as possible, not just people in Palestine, but Americans as well. And they're trying to kill as many people as possible, as efficiently as possible. For example, we all know they just voted to take healthcare away from 17 million Americans, which will kill an estimated 50,300 people per year. And they know that this is what the big, beautiful bill will do, and that's why they voted for it. They like that it's going to hurt people and kill people. We're talking about individuals who probably literally tortured animals as kids. They are deeply, deeply disturbed individuals. Like, I don't know why, if you're a serial killer, you don't just run for Congress, because you can kill people legally that way. Makes no sense to just like do it and then go to jail. You can just be a member of Congress like Randy Fine or Virginia Fox. And yeah, you can do it legally, right? And they have the audacity to do this shit to us while calling themselves pro-life. It's like they're playing some sick joke on us. But even though they know what they're doing is evil and will kill people, they become apoplectic if you dare to point out their hypocrisy, that they're doing all this shit while calling themselves pro-life. For example, Republican demon Virginia Fox, she got very mad when Maxwell Frost confronted her about her hypocrisy.
Yeah, see, they say they're pro-life because they want the baby to be born, go to school, and get shot in the school. Die in the school, die on the streets. No, that is what they say.
I'm not going to say anything, but you've gone over the cliff.
I moved to strike his words.
Over the cliff. Wait, you've gone over. We were going to be quiet, but you've gone over now.
You didn't use any.
I meant every word.
We are going to strike your words. But on the other hand, it might be good to leave your words. It might be good to leave your words. Because that's how you feel. But you are not going to come into this room and impugn our integrity. You will not. We are pro-life people from conception to natural death. Most of us are. And don't you come in here and say, we want to preserve life so people can get shot.
That's what I've seen.
I hate this lady so fucking much. Like, what a disgusting, detestable, embarrassing excuse for a fucking lawmaker. Like, this 172-year-old dipshit just voted to kill 50,000 Americans every single year, but yet she has the audacity to be offended and clutch her pearls because somebody said, hey, you're not really pro-life if you do this shit. Fuck you, lady. My God. Like, this is somebody who's supporting a president that's sending immigrants to alligator Auschwitz and foreign concentration camps to be tortured. They're arming and funding a genocide. They've been doing this now for nearly 2 years. Shut the fuck up about being pro-life. You're not pro-life, you're pro-death. Quite literally. All of the policies that these Republicans support are purposefully designed to maximize the amount of pain and suffering working class people feel. I genuinely believe that the only reason why these people want to force women to give birth is so that way they have more people to torture. I mean that. Like, they enjoy people's pain and suffering. I don't know if it's because it makes them feel powerful or because they get off on it, but their actions indicate that they take some sort of pleasure in some way in causing as much pain and suffering as possible. For all intents and purposes, they are the physical manifestation of the worst interpretation of demons, but somehow more evil. And even though they've always been evil, they've definitely felt more emboldened by Donald Trump and have become more evil, openly so, as a result. Like, they no longer feel inclined to hide their sociopathic tendencies because he's made it socially acceptable to just let your freak flag fly again if you're a racist or misogynist or in general just a piece of shit. And I know that it's hard to keep up with all of the bullshit that Donald Trump is doing on a daily basis to satiate his thirst for power and destruction, but let me just give you a couple of examples as to how he's trying to inflict as much pain and suffering on people as he possibly can. Right now, there are people, as I record this video, in a Salvadoran concentration camp being tortured as we speak. We know from Kilmar Abrigo's time at CCOT that he was subjected to physical abuse as well as psychological torture. He was also denied bathroom access and starved, saying that he lost 31 pounds in the first 2 weeks there. And immigrants currently staying at Alligator Auschwitz in Florida are experiencing conditions that are arguably comparable. They're not allowed to bathe, they're being fed just one maggot-filled meal a day, and they're being forced to sleep with the lights on. And just to be clear, we're not talking about criminals here. Not that this treatment would be acceptable if they were criminals. We're talking about immigrants who did nothing wrong. The overwhelming majority of the immigrants caught up in Trump's deportation force, they are not criminals. They contribute to our economy and pay taxes, but they were born with darker skin in a different area of the planet. So Trump wants them out because, you know, he's a white supremacist who's trying to build a white Christian ethno state. And increasingly, More and more American citizens are also being caught up in his Gestapo's deportation force, predictably so. We already know that there were American children that were deported, one of which had cancer. But more stories are starting to emerge of Americans being sent to countries that they're not familiar with. American citizens being sent to countries that they're not familiar with, like Jermaine Thomas, an American citizen born to an American father on a U.S. military base in Germany who was just deported to Jamaica, a country he's never been to. But they decided to ship him there because they think that he's more Jamaican than American because he's black, I guess. And now he's staying in a homeless shelter there because he doesn't know where else to go. He's in an unfamiliar country where he knows no one, because this is an American citizen we're talking about. And this is going to become more common because Trump's administration is now formally preparing to strip citizenship away from Americans. Is this constitutional? Well, of course not. But it doesn't matter because the Constitution is no longer in effect. And I don't think that people comprehend that reality. The Constitution is no longer in effect. The law is what Trump says it is because the Republican supermajority on the Supreme Court didn't just give him the power to override the Constitution. They gave him near absolute immunity so that way he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants. If he wants to go full Hitler, he can do so without worrying about any legal culpability if he ever chooses to leave office, which is debatable at this point. I don't know if he's going to ever leave office. In fact, he's now openly toying with the idea of possibly taking over U.S. cities and running them himself, as if that's a normal thing for a fucking president to say. But it's not like this is surprising since he already sent his Gestapo to cities like LA to functionally serve as an occupying force. And the ICE Gestapo is basically terrorizing cities that they're occupying currently. And in a disturbing mini documentary from Evident Media, which I'm going to link to down below, they detail the shocking number of human rights abuses of the ICE Gestapo. And the director of this Nazi-like operation in LA made a really chilling statement in response to the outrage. And I want to share that with you.
Better get used to us now because this is going to be normal very soon.
It's so disgusting that you can see how giddy he is about the fact that he's going to get to terrorize even more communities. And unfortunately, he's not wrong. They're not going to go anywhere. Republicans just voted for the big, beautiful bill, which gives ICE an additional $150 billion, making it the third largest funded military in the world after China, as Lance from the Surfs points out. So Trump just turbocharged his Gestapo, and their ominous presence will soon be ubiquitous in even more cities, if not all of them. Will they harass us? Probably. Will they set up checkpoints for us to go through so that way they can subject us to their power trips? Who knows what they'll do? But one thing that's certain is that they'll all be rock hard while they intimidate and terrorize us and treat us as if we're subjects of their domestic imperial project. And one thing I need people to understand is that they feel compelled to cover their faces because they want to be able to violate our civil liberties with impunity. Now, when Trump was asked about ICE and CBP brown shirts not wearing masks or perhaps even wearing something to identify themselves as federal officers, he balked at that recommendation and said that if you want that, then you don't like America.
Subject. Two Democratic senators now, Cory Booker and Alex Padilla, have a new bill out. They want to require CBP and ICE officers to have legible IDs, and they don't want CBP or ICE officers covering their faces. Would you ever sign that?
Well, they wouldn't be saying that if they didn't hate our country, and they obviously do. I'm surprised that they would do it, knowing a little bit about them. I don't know them well, but these officers are doing a tremendous job. They're great patriots. If you expose them because of statements like have been made by Democrats and others on the left, usually, mostly, I think probably exclusively, you put them in great danger, tremendous danger.
Yes, you hate America if you don't let his Gestapo terrorize you anonymously because Americans, I guess, are the real threat, not his Gestapo. Listen, America, you did this. Anyone who voted for this man should be reminded for the rest of their lives what the fuck they did. They have perma-fucked this country, and they should live with that shame forever. But, they're doing all this. They have to terrorize us anonymously while wearing masks and not identifying themselves. But also, they're the party of freedom. Like, it feels like they're playing a game with us, right? They're pro-life, yet they enact pro-death policies. They're pro-freedom, yet enact anti-freedom policies. And they're also pro-free speech. Just don't you dare say anything negative about the regime on social media if you expect to enter the country. Or don't expect to criticize Israel. Otherwise, there's going to be hell to pay. And I should mention on that note that this administration chose to impose sanctions on Francesca Albanese, who is the special rapporteur for the UN Human Rights Council, because she dared to try to uphold international law and hold Netanyahu accountable for the crimes against humanity that he was indicted for. It should be Israel we're sanctioning, but instead we're sanctioning an official on the UN Human Rights Council for trying to uphold international law. It's like a sick joke. But yet the United States wants you to think that they still care about human rights, especially if there's a country that they want to invade for humanitarian reasons. Listen, you have to understand that all of the contradictions and the blatant lies and the in-your-face hypocrisy is a choice. They may also be deeply stupid, I get that, but it's not accidental. It's part of the psychological warfare that they're waging on all of us to make us feel like we're going fucking crazy, but we're not going crazy. These people are liars and they are immoral. They are completely unhinged and untethered from the truth, and they've made it so that way we're basically living in George Orwell's 1984. And we're now being ruled over by a fucking wannabe king who's leading the modern day Nazi movement. It's like a nightmare situation, but things can always get worse, as they've taught us. So, you know, our country has basically been conquered by deeply immoral and unethical people. And as hard as it is to accept that reality, we have to. We can't bury our heads in the sand. We have to be real about the threat that Republicans pose. But I do have hope one day that most Americans will wake up, and when or if that day comes, listen, we cannot accept the bullshit Obama line of we're going to turn the page and move on. No, people have to fucking go to jail for what's happening to this country. It's not just that we have to make Republicanism socially toxic. We have to seek retribution for the crimes that this party is committing, for their wanton violations of the Constitution, for their human rights abuses, for their crimes against humanity. There needs to be real accountability for everyone involved in the destruction of this fucking country. Nothing more, nothing less. Because you can't eliminate evil, for sure. There's always going to be disturbed people who get off on others' pain and suffering. But what we can do is bully these fascist fucking freaks back into the closet so they don't feel as confident to spew the vile bullshit that they spew now on a daily fucking basis. It should be as toxic to be a Republican as it is to be a Nazi when it's all said and done, because they are objectively an existential threat to all life on this planet. Think about it. They're not just doing nothing about climate change. They're also undoing what little progress we've made because they are fucking evil. I can't stress that enough. They are actually evil. To the extent that evil exists, the Republican Party is the personification of evil. And we need to be so much more direct about this and stop mincing words to protect their feelings or the feelings of people who vote Republicans. Fuck those people too. They're evil in every sense of the word, but no word can truly capture the dark essence of these uncivilized, feral barbarians. They are a demented, psychotic death cult, and we have to do everything in our power to defeat them. Politically, socially, culturally, and make sure that this level of evil never manifests ever again.
Excuse me. Vagina.